Hello and welcome to this exploring session, our final session, looking at Selimus by T.G. And we'll discuss authorship questions perhaps towards the end of this session. If you haven't watched the previous session and a half where we've looked at this play, really go back and start from scratch and just switch this video off and go back. There's no point. You don't want to spoil by finding out things that have already happened. It'll just ruin the experience for you. Trust me, you need to graduate the horror slowly and let it creep up on you. So take that in mind. So usual trigger warnings for this kind of play. There's some death. There's going to be some death. It's going to be a bit bloody, and we can never guarantee whether any plays will not throw up other problematic elements. So let's always bear in mind that this is from the early modern period, and this is about a foreign clime, and therefore we will not be surprised if elements of the script will leap out at us as being unfortunate, questionable, or in production cut. So to guide us through the last scenes of the play, as we've got it here, we're going from scene 18. Scene divisions may vary. We have a team of readers today who are going to battle through this text. So today, in no particular order, reading Abraham and Hali is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm actor from Montpellier, France.
And reading Mustaffa and Messenger today is...
Hello, I'm Helen. Sorry. I'm Helen Good, and I'm a historian in Yorkshire.
Reading the parts of Aga, Cali, and Queen is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer, and director living in Germany.
And reading the part of Bajazet and Tonombey today is...
Hello, I'm Valentina, and I'm an actor and voiceover artist in London.
And reading the part of Corcut and Amurath today is...
Hello, I'm Sally Barnden. I'm a researcher in London.
Reading the parts of Sinam and Solyma is...
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in Romford in Essex.
And reading the parts of Acomat, Page, and Aladin is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
And finally, reading the title character Selimus, who so far has done so much in this play, is...
Hello, my name's Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton, and today I will actually be reading words. Yes, not just stage directions. I may pass stage directions to other people as we go along, but I will be reading Bullithrumble, the new character who we've not encountered so far in the play. So let's see what happens with that. That's going to be an interesting dance around, I'm sure. So we're going to start with, in our script, to say scene 18. Enter Bajazet leading Aga, Mustaffa, Hali, Cali, Selimus, and the Janissaries are also there.
Come, mournful Aga, come and sit by me. Thou hast been sorely grieved for Bajazet. Good reason, then, that he should grieve for thee. Give me thy arm, though thou hast lost thy hands and livest as a poor exile in this light, yet hast thou won the heart of Bajazet.
Your Grace's words are very comfortable, and well can Aga bear his grievous loss, since it was for so good a prince's sake.
Father, if I may call thee by that name, whose life I aimed at with rebellious sword, in all humility thy reformed son offers himself into your Grace's hands, and at your feet layeth his bloody sword, which he advanced against your majesty. If my offence do seem so odious, that I deserve not longer time to live, behold, I open unto you my breast, ready prepared to die at your command. But if repentance in unfeigned heart, and sorrow for my grievous crime forepast, may merit pardon at your princely hands, behold where poor inglorious Selimus upon his knees begs pardon of your grace.
Stand up, my son. I joy to hear thee speak, but more to hear thou art so well reclaimed. Thy crime was ne'er so odious unto me, But thy reformed life and humble thoughts are thrice as pleasing to my aged spirit. Selim, we here pronounce thee by our will chief general of warlike Janizars. Go lead them out against false Acomat, which has so grievously rebelled against me. Spare him not, Selim, though he may be my son, yet do I know now clean disinherit him as common enemy to me and mine.
May Selim live to show how dutiful and loving he will be to Bajazet.
And just in case you were in any doubt as to Selimus's feelings about his father, he now speaks aside.
So now doth fortune smile on me again, and in regard of former injuries, offer me millions of diadems. I smile to see how that good old man thinks Selim's thoughts are brought to such an ebb, as he hath cast off all ambitious hopes. But soon shall that opinion be removed. For if I once get amongst the Janizars, then on my head the golden crown shall sit. Well, Bajazet, I fear me thou wilt grieve, that ere thou didst thy feigning son believe.
And exit Selim with all the rest save Bajazet and Aga.
Now, Aga, all the thoughts that troubled me do rest within the centre of my heart, and thou shalt shortly joy as much with me than Acomat by Selim's consuming sword shall leese that ghost which made thee lose thy sight.
Ah, Bajazet, Aga looks not for revenge, but will pour out his prayers to the heavens that Acomat may learn by Selimus to yield himself up to his father's grace.
There's a sounding within, and the stage direction says, and I think we should all say this now, all together now, Long live Selimus, Emperor of
the Turks.
How now? What sudden triumph have we here?
Ah, gracious lord, the captains of the host with one assent have crowned Prince Selimus, and here he comes with all the Janizars to crave his confirmation at thy hands.
Yes, enter Cali Bassa, Selimus, Hali Bassa, Sinam, and the Janissaries.
Bajazet, we the captains of thy host, knowing thy weak and too unwieldy age, unable is longer to govern us, have chosen Selimus thy younger son, that he may be our leader and our guide, against the Sophie and his Persians, against the victorious Soldan Tonombey. There wants but thy consent, which we will have, or hew thy body piecemeal with our swords.
Needs must I give what is already gone.
And he takes off his crown.
Here, Selimus, thy father Bajazet, wearied with cares that wait upon a king, resigns the crown as willingly to thee as ere my father gave it unto me.
And sets it on his head. All together now.
Long live Selimus,
Emperor of the Turks.
Live thou a long and victorious reign, and be triumpher of thine enemies. Aga and I will to Demoticum, and leave in peace the remnant of our days.
Exit Bajazet and Aga.
Now sit I like the Armstrong son of Job, when after he had all his memories, all his monsters quelled, he was received in heaven amongst the gods, and had fair Hebe for his lovely bride, as many labours Selimus hath had, and now at length attained to the crown. This is my Hebe, and this is my heaven. Bajazet goeth to Demoticum, and there he purposes to live at ease. But Selimus, as long as he is on earth, thou shalt not sleep in rest without some broil. For Bajazet is unconstant as the winds. To make that sure, I have a platform laid. Bajazet hath with him a cunning Jew, professing physic, and so skilled therein, as if he had power over life and death. Withal, a man so stout and resolute, that he will venture anything for gold. This Jew with some intoxicated drink shall poison Bajazet, and that blind lord. Then one of Hydra's heads is clean cut off. Go, Sam, and fetch here Abraham the Jew.
Exit 1 for Abraham.
Corcut, thy pageant next is to be played, for though he be a grave philosopher, given to reading Muhammad's dread laws, and Razin's toys, and Avicenna's drugs, yet he may have a longing for the crown. Besides, he may be devilish negromancy, he may by devilish negromancy procure my death or work my overthrow. The devil still is ready to do harm. Hali, you and your brother presently shall with an army to Magnesia. There you shall find the scholar at his book. And hearest thou, Hali? Strangle him.
And exeunt Hali and Cali.
Corcut once dead, then Acomat remains, whose death will make me certain of the crown. These heads of Hydra are the principal. When these are off, some other will arise, as Amurath and Aladin, sons of Acomat, my sister Solyma, Mustaffa's wife. All these shall suffer shipwreck on a shelf, rather than Selim will be drowned himself.
And enter Abraham.
Jew, thou art welcome unto Selimus. I have a piece of service for you, sir, but on your life be secret in the deed. Get a strong poison, whose envenomed taste may take away the life of Bajazet before he passed forth of Byzantium.
I warn you, my gracious sovereign, he shall be quickly sent unto his grave, for I have potions of so strong a force that whosoever touches them shall die.
And he speaks aside.
And would your grace would once but taste of them, I could as willingly afford them you as your aged father Bajazet. My lord, I am resolved to do the deed.
So,
exit Abraham.
So this is well, for I am none of those that make a conscience for to kill a man. For nothing is more hurtful to a prince than to be scrupulous and religious. I, like Lysander's counsel passing well, if that I cannot speed with lion's force, to clothe my complots in a fox's skin. For the only things that wrought our empery were open wrongs and hidden treachery. Oh, there are two wings herewith I used to fly, and soar above the common sort. If any seek our wrongs to remedy, with these I take his meditation short, and one of these shall still maintain my cause, or fox's skin, or lion's rending paws.
And they all exit. Quite a few things to talk about in that particular scene. I think someone said last time, surprised that we didn't have too many problematic things about race, and then suddenly in this scene we get several thrown at us all at once. So yes, we have a very bad depiction of a Jew here, who will do anything for gold and other such
With
slanders.
some necromancy.
Yes, black magic is the root there of that word, and yes, I think that would need to be adjusted.
Not a pop album.
That would be very easy to adjust, just a necromancy.
Yes. But that's the root of the word, and that's the word choice that has been used here, and I don't think we would. So yeah, that's problematic. All of that. Less problematic is the just the general turning around of the fortunes of Bajazet. The moment he says, "I will make you my general," he goes off stage, and immediately everyone says, "You're better than him." Within 9 lines.
That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
They've stopped trying to keep us excited by the plot, what twists and turns may come. I mean, Selimus lays it out pretty flat for us, right? That's the family tree done.
Yeah. We assume that all these things will come to pass. They may not.
Aladin has a brother. Aladin, I think, has a brother, Amurath.
Yes.
Mm.
So that's more trouble, double trouble.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with targets on their backs at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's a nice little bit about the theory of government. I mean, all the way through, I'm picking up these theory of government. Some's from Bajazet, mostly from Selimus. He's got his philosophy worked out.
Mm. Well, it's interesting if we compare with Tamburlaine, who also has his head screwed on very clearly. He knows what he wants. He knows how to control people and establish his own power. The big difference between Selimus, Selimus is just an out-and-out villain. He makes it absolutely clear from the off that he is a monster in many ways. But he's a much more organized monster than Acomat is, who is just doing things for evil things' sake without actually seeming to establish any kind of power base.
He's an amateur.
Yeah, he's a dilettante.
We've not had much of Acomat lately.
No, not yet. Yeah, he's disappeared a bit.
It's odd, this play. It only seems to want one tyrant on the stage at once.
Yes.
It started off with Selimus, and then he disappeared, and then we had a whole Acomat section, and then he's disappeared.
Yeah, but you see, if you put two tyrants in the same bowl, they destroy one another. You've got to keep them separate in separate tanks.
That, to be honest, given what's happened in this play so far, I would not be dismayed if that happened.
I've had the feeling from fairly early on that this whole thing's leading up to a big showdown between Acomat and Selimus. I'm interested to find out if I'm right.
I'm curious to see Corcut.
Yeah,
exactly.
The philosopher.
I tell you,
the philosopher.
If he turns up and ends up being rubbish as well, that will be it with this play. Like, there has to be someone in this play who is decent.
Well, he probably is decent. That's why he'll die.
Oh, well, yeah, there is that. Yeah.
I mean, Argo's quite a decent chap, and he lost both eyes and both hands.
Yeah.
Doesn't pay well in this climate.
No.
And the wonder he's worried to show his face. Doesn't bode well for him.
And then, yes, I say the scene closes with the sort of general plotting, very problematic element, the possibility that that Abraham is happily willing to turn the favor back on Selimus. So there's that little element of that aside that he's maybe a system of assassination can backfire.
I got the impression that he would rather poison Selimus.
Oh yeah, I don't think he's happy where he is.
No.
And I think actually Abraham's exit line should be is not an aside.
Yes, I marked that in just now. It's clearly those three lines are the aside, and then it's goodbye, my lord. Any other thoughts before we move forward? Okay, let's move into the next scene. Scene 19 as we have it. Enter Bajazet, Aga in mourning clothes, and Abraham with a cup.
Come, Aga, let us sit and mourn for a while, for fortune never shewed herself so cross to any prince as poor Bajazet, that woeful emperor first of my name, whom the Tartarians locked in a cage to be a spectacle to all the world, was 10 times happier than I am. For Tamburlaine, the Scrooge of nations, was he that pulled him from his kingdom, sir. But mine own sons expel me from the throne, and where shall I begin to make my moan? Or what shall I first reckon to in my plaint? From my youth up I have been drowned in woe, and to my latest hour I shall be so. Whose swelling seas of never-ceasing care, whose waves my weather-beaten ship to toss. You boisterous billows too unruly are, and threaten still my ruin and my loss. Like huge mountains do your waters rear, their lofty tops and by weak vessel crossed. Alas, at length allay your stormy strife, and cruel wrath within me rages rise. Or else my feeble bark cannot endure your slashing buffets and outrageous blows, but while thy foamy flood doth it immure, shall soon be wrecked upon the sandy shallows. Grief my lewd boatswain stirreth nothing shore, but without stars 'gainst tide and wind he rows, and cares not though upon some rock we split, a restless pilot for the charge unfit. But out, alas, the God that veils the sea and can alone these raging tempests stand, will never blow a gentle gale of ease, but suffer my poor vessel to be rent. Then, O thou blind procurer of mischance, that stays thyself upon turning wheel, thy cruel hand, even with thou wilt announce, and pierce my poor heart with thy tyrant still.
Oh, cease, Bajazet. Now it is Arga's turn. Rest thou a while, and gather up more tears, the while poor Arga tell his tragedy. When first my mother brought me to the world, some blazing comet ruled in the sky, portending miserable chance to me. My parents were but men of poor estate, and happy yet had wretched Arga been, if Bajazet had not exalted him. Poor Arga! Had it not been much more fair to have died among the cruel Persians, than thus at home by barbarous tyrannies to live, and never see the cheerful day, and to want hands wherewith to feel the way?
Leave weeping, Arga. We have wept enough. Now Bajazet will ban another while, and utter curses to the conquered sky, which may infect the regions of the air, and bring a general plague on all the world. Night, thou most ancient grandmother of all, first made by Jove for rest and quiet sleep, when cheerful day is gone from the earth's wide hall. Henceforth thy mantle in black leather steep, and clothe the world in darkness infernal. Suffer not once the joyful daylight peep, but let thy pitchy steed I draw thy wain, and call black silence in the world still reign. Curse on my parents that first brought me up, and on the cradle wherein I was rocked. Curse on the day when first I was created, the chief commander of all Asia. Curse on my sons that drive me to this grief. Curse on myself that can find no relief, and curse on him an everlasting curse that quencheth those lamps of ever burning light, and took away my Aga's warlike hands, and curse on all things under the wide sky. O Aga, I have cursed my stomach dry.
I have a drink, my lords, of noble worth, which soon will calm your stormy passions and glad your hearts, if so you please to taste it.
And who art thou that thus dost pity us?
Your highest humble servant, Abraham.
Abraham, sit down and drink to Bajazet.
Faith, I am old as well as Bajazet, and had not many months to live on earth. I care not much to end me life with him. There, here's to your lordings with the full carouse.
And he drinks.
Here, Aga, woeful Bajazet drinks to thee. Abraham, hold the cup to him while he drinks.
Now, O lords, know, O lords, that you have drunk your last. This was a potion which I did prepare to poison you by Selimus's instigation. And now it is dispersed through my bones. And glad I am that such companions shall go with me down to Proserpina.
And he dies.
Oh, wicked Jew! Oh, cursed Selimus! How have the destinies dealt with Bajazet that none should cause my death but my own son? Had Ismail and his warlike Persians pierced my body with their iron spears, or had the strong, unconquered Tonombey with his Egyptians took me prisoner and sent me with his valiant Mamelukes to be prey unto the crocodiles, it never would have grieved me half so much. But welcome death, into whose calm report my sorrow-beaten soul joys to arrive. And now farewell, my disobedient sons, unnatural sons, unworthy of that name. Farewell, sweet life, and Aga, now farewell, till we shall meet in the Elysian's field.
And he dies.
What greater grief had mournful Priamus than that he lived to see his Hector die, his city burnt down by revenging flames, and poor Polites slain before his face? Aga, thy grief is matchable to his, for I have lived to see my sovereign's death. Yet glad I must breathe my last with him. And now farewell, sweet light, which my poor eyes these twice 6 months never did behold. Aga will follow noble Bajazet, and beg a boon of lovely Proserpine, that he and I may in the mournful fields still weep and wail our strange calamities.
And Aga also dies. And thus ends the scene. Someone presumably clears up the bodies while the next bit of business occurs. There's no mention in the stage direction as to how that happens, unless the shepherd who comes on now has a side job as a street sweeper or something. I don't know. I'm assuming basically they send the clown on now to get the bodies off behind him. While that happens, or they've got some kind of rig that wheels backwards, that they all die in a very carefully positioned bit of stage bit. So domino deaths.
Domino deaths, nicely, nicely done.
I mean, to be fair, Bajazet kind of putting him out of his misery, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh God! At the beginning of that scene, I was just. Yeah, his weeping and wailing was just getting too much, and I was just like, finish him off.
Moaning.
Milk of human kindness does not run deep here, does it?
No.
No, he's channeling his inner Selimus.
Yeah, really in character here.
Mm. We build to these curses as well. I mean, you know, he goes from that self-pity to death, curse, curse. Cursing everyone, himself. No, it's just scattergun.
I thought it was interesting how Abraham drank the poison as well,
Yeah.
knowing it's poison.
Yeah. What's that about?
He drank it with them.
Yeah, it's interesting that those first 3 lines there, Faith, I am old as well as better, they must be an aside as well, that he says to the audience, you know, I'm not going to survive this anyway. I mean, presumably, if he goes back to Selimus, he's just going to get killed himself anyway.
What I want to know is, how did Aga manage to drink it if he didn't have any hands?
It does say Abraham hold the cup to him while he drinks.
Sorry, I missed that.
I
missed that.
As in the mass.
I was so taken up with the enormously extended seagoing metaphor, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That I was suddenly hit by the fact that time has passed. Apparently, according to Aga, a year.
Yes.
This is 1 year later.
Yeah.
But
it's certainly not going to seem like that on the stage.
No, it's quite bizarre. I mean, presumably historically that's the time scale, as with history plays where things get condensed and telescoped in.
Yeah. The other thing that I got, which I had totally failed to spot before, was who Tonombey is. It's Ptolemy.
Ptolemy, yeah.
Yeah, that I completely missed.
So
Ptolemy.
I think I mentioned it last scene in passing, but I wanted to bring it up in more detail here. It's just the you know, to do this requires active rewriting, because the utter pointlessness of the anti-Jewish sentiment here and with Abraham, it's just it's not like there's any thesis here except to just be horrible, and it's a really unpleasant element to this. You know, he could just be some poisoner. There is no need for this at all within the rest of the play. You know, within the internal logic of the play, it's just that. Quite glad that's passed now.
I'm assuming in plays of this era, Jews were typically portrayed as poisoners, crooks, criminals, moneylenders, not to be trusted, and so forth.
Well, I mean, we haven't actually come across that many in our journeying. We haven't done every single play yet, but we have done a lot of plays. And it's not really come up that often. There are some big, very, very big examples of use of Jewish characters, but actually sometimes they come across perfectly well, and it's fine.
Not done Jew of Malta then. We've not done Jew of Malta yet then.
No, we haven't. But I haven't come across actually that many others yet.
There was that amazing thing in an epilogue where an actor absolutely gratuitously out of nowhere says, "And I hope there are no Jews in the audience." Which was weird. There was nothing behind it at all.
No, it just suddenly came out of nowhere.
I forget which play that was.
I can't remember. I will quickly do a computer hunt for that, and while we're going through some stuff later on. You know, we've had plenty of murderers, we've had plenty of thieves, we've had plenty of people, but they've not been designated as from anywhere particularly.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think whether the Frescobaldis weren't Jewish, were they? The family?
No, they were Italian.
No, but they weren't Italian Jewish.
I don't think so.
No, okay. Because Frisky Ball has a fantastic role in Thomas Cromwell. I was kind of hoping that maybe there'd be a link there, but there isn't.
Anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of literature out there that does touch on this, and we should probably not speculate without too much additional data at this point, but it's a good point to raise. I'm going to ask Helen if you can read the stage directions for the next scene, because I'm having to do some acting. I'm very sorry, everyone.
Are you ready?
Yes. Scene
20. Enter Bullithrumble, the shepherd, running in haste and laughing to himself.
Married, quoth you? Marry and Bullithrumble were to begin the world again. I would set a tapper brooch and not live in daily fear of the breach of my wife's 10 commandments. I'll tell you what, I thought myself as proper a fellow as wasters as in any in our village, and yet when my wife begins to play clubs trump with me, I am fain to sing. What hap had I to marry a shrew, for she hath given me many a blow, and how to please her, alas, I do not know. From morn to even her tongue ne'er lies. Sometimes she laughs, sometimes she cries, and I can scarce keep her talons from my eyes. When from abroad I do come in, Sir Knave, she cries, where have you been? Thus please or this displease, she lays it on my skin. Then do I crouch, then do I kneel, and wish my cap were furred with steel, to bear the blows that my poor head doth feel. But Sir John, beshrew thy heart, for thou hast joined us, we cannot part. And I, poor fool, must ever bear the smart. I'll tell you what, this morning while I was making me ready, she came with a holly wand and so blessed my shoulders that I was fain to run through a whole alphabet of faces. Now at the last, seeing she was so crammock with me, I began to swear all the crisscross row over, beginning at great A till I came to WXY. and snatching up my sheep hook and my bottle and my bag like a desperate fellow, ran away. And here now I'll sit down and eat my meat.
While he is eating, enter Corcut and his page, disguised like mourners.
O hateful, hellish snake of Tartary that feedst on the soul of noblest men, damned ambition, cause of all misery, why dost thou creep from out thy loathsome fen, and with thy poison animatest friends, and gape and long one for the other's ends? Selimus, couldst thou not content thy mind with the possession of the sacred throne, which thou didst get by father's death unkind, whose poisoned ghost before high God doth groan? But thou must seek poor Corcut's overthrow, that never injured thee, so, nor so? Old Hali's sons with 2 great company of barded horse were sent from Selimus to take me prisoner in Magnesia, and death I am sure should have befell to me, if they had once but set their eyes on me. So, thus disguised, my poor page and I fled fast to Smyrna, where in a dark cave we meant to await the arrival of some ship that might transfreight us safely unto Rhodes. But see how fortune crossed my enterprise. Bostangi Bassa, Selim's son-in-law, kept all the sea-coast with his brigandines, that if we had but ventured on the sea, I presently had been his prisoner. These 2 days have we kept us in the cave, eating such herbs as the ground did afford, and now through hunger are we both constrained, like fearful snakes, to creep out step by step, and see if we may get us any food. And in good time see, yonder sits a man, spreading a hungry dinner on the grass.
Bullithrumble spies them and puts up his meat.
These are some Felonians that seek to rob me. Well, I'll make myself a good deal valianter than I am indeed, and if they will needs creep into kindred with me, I'll betake me to my old occupation and run away.
Hail, groom.
Good sir, you are deceived. My name's Master Bullithrumble. This is some cozening, coney-catching crossbiter that would fain persuade me he knows me, and so under a taints of familiarity and acquaintance, uncle me of victuals.
Then, Bullithrumble, if that be thy name?
Oh, name, sir. Oh, God, yes, and if you will not believe me, I will bring my godfathers and godmothers, and they shall swear it upon the font stone and upon the church book too, where it is written. Mass, I think he be some justice of peace, and quorum, and omnium popularum. How he assignees me, a Christian. Yes, marry I am, sir, yes, verily, and do believe, and it please you, I'll go forward in my catechism.
Then, Bullithrumble, by that blessed Christ, and by the tomb where he was buried, by sovereign hope which thou conceivest in him, whom dead as ever living thou adorest.
Oh, Lord, help me, I shall be torn in pieces with devils and goblins.
By all the joys thou hopest to have in heaven, give some meat to poor hunger-starved men.
Oh, these are, as a man should say, beggars. Now will I be as stately to them as I were Master Pigwiggin, our constable. Well, sirs, come before me, tell me if I should entertain you, would you not steal? Oh, someone jump in to be the page.
If we did mean so, sir, we would not make your worship acquainted with it.
Ah, good, well nutrimented lad. Well, if you will keep my sheep truly and honestly, keeping your hands from lying and slandering, and your tongues from picking and stealing, you shall be Master Bullithrumble's servitors.
With all our hearts.
Well, then come on and follow me. We will have a hog's cheek and a dish of tripes and a society of puddings and a field. A society of puddings? Did you mark well? Did you mark that well-used metaphor? Another one that said, a company of puddings. If you dwell with me long, sirs, I shall make you as eloquent as our parson himself.
Sorry, exit. They leave, Corcut and Bullithrumble.
Now is the time when I may be enriched. The brethren that were sent by Selimus to take my lord, Prince Corcut, prisoner, finding him fled, proposed large rewards to them that could declare where he remains. Faith, I'll to them and get the Portuguese, though by the bargain Corcut lose his head.
Exit page.
Exit page indeed. You see, there is an anonymous random character who's going to do something evil and villainous. You don't need to do any more with a character than that. Okay, well, as I was reading that, thoughts from the room.
Bullithrumble changes the tone, jars somehow.
Yes, there are 3 dead bodies on the stage.
Yeah.
Dan.
So I've got possibly a casting thing here, because this is once again to back up Scott McMillan's theory that the clowns are filling up space for doubling here. So I'm wondering if Bajazet and Aga are playing at the page.
Yeah.
So are playing who? What?
Playing Corcut and the page, because he's got that long monologue to give, presumably to give time for them to get ready.
Yeah, that seems plausible enough. Yeah.
So they're not dead bodies at the back of the stage then?
Well, they got off really quickly.
Yeah.
Helen.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that that's the only justification for that character.
And his song
doesn't seem to perform any useful purpose, and it does change the whole mood of the thing, and I'm not sure in a helpful manner.
Well, yeah, he comes on and does a turn, and I mean it addresses that question again that, you know, there's no comedy. There's been no comedy in this play at all. You know, beyond dark comedy. This is the first overt here is a clown doing some clowning things. I wonder if the reason, you know, if this text has potentially been trimmed to remove other comic business, but Bullithrumble is not cuttable in his entirety, and therefore remains. And that's something that's in the back of my mind with this, is that there's some editorial work has occurred prior to printing.
There are members of the audience for whom they are coming in order to see whoever it is who is playing Bullithrumble. I mean, the clowns, we're talking about Morecambe and Wise here. We're talking about people who, the moment they stick their noses onto the stage, the audience becomes happy.
Yeah.
It's very odd though, isn't it? I mean, I love clowns. They're my favourite roles in these plays, but like this sits so weirdly in the context of this play. And had there been a bit earlier, you can say, oh, you know, because we're kind of used to flipping back and forth. But because there's been none whatsoever, and also because we keep getting these great big long weighty speeches as well, it's like it does really stick out. It's slightly bewildering. I suppose given what's happened, it is some light relief for the audience, but it does really like mess up the shape of the play. Although I have to say, like, t-shirt line, for me at least, I don't know about anyone else, but I need a t-shirt with this on. I was fain to run through a whole alphabet of faces. Yes. I love that line.
Yes, me too.
So great.
Yeah, I mean, as Elizabeth was saying, you know, it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's got a song. I mean, it's not only that, it's got a song. And it's very reminiscent of, you know, I don't know whether it's a traditional song or not, or whether there's that. The sort of general plot line of it feels very much like the play John is Sir John and his wife Tib by John Hayward. It's just that sort of thing about the shrewish wife and the mention of Sir John at the end as well. There's a reason why that leapt to my mind, which I will throw in at the end, which is entirely spurious and should be ignored. Dan.
I think it is a good point about people looking forward to the clown here, especially if it is the same clown from the Queen's Players who had played in James IV and all of these other plays, Adam, who they think it might have been.
Mm.
Also, just the reminder that this is actually the first part of Selim, the tragical reign of Selimus. So I wonder if people knowing this are they're okay with, I guess, the idea that they've had to wait this long, because maybe there's an expectation, all right, well, maybe in the second part, or we'll see, we know these guys are coming out at some point, so they can get away with doing a lot of weightier material.
Alan, I saw a hand.
This is part one.
Part one.
Oh man.
Well, there's more to come, which we'll say talk about at the end.
Sorry,
Alan first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just surprised with your normal care about being PC that you find a scene about husband beating acceptable.
Me? I don't know. But that is something of which we do have definitely got a very rich dramatic tradition of material to feed from, and that's why I brought up the John Hayward play, and you know that is all over the shop, in that sense. But you know we could always swap out the song. Elizabeth, are you waving or?
No, just something in my. I was going to say though that Bullithrumble reminds me of Tom Bombadil.
Yeah. Yes.
The way he just turns up and starts singing songs, and it's not relevant to the narrative.
Yes, like Tom Bombadil, frequently cut. Yes. Dan.
We're working off of the second quarter from 1638, but interestingly, it's actually just from the same stock. I mean, that's the theory from the first quarter of 1594, and all they did was do a new title page for it. And in fact, the prologue is not in the second quarter because it was on the verso side of the title page from the first one. So, which says to me, possibly this play was not that popular.
Yeah.
It was popular enough to get printed.
Well, that's never a good. I mean,
yeah.
One time, but if it was that popular, why was there so much stock or enough stock left to make a second quarto in like 40 years later?
Yeah.
Yes, because it is a massive span of time that.
And it's Thomas Creed, who this is closer to the beginning of his career, but this guy has printed a lot of big plays.
Yes.
So he couldn't move this one.
Yes, good. You know, it maybe if it is deliberately following on a wave of a bit like Tamburlaine, that people went, it's not quite Tamburlaine enough.
Close but not cigar.
Yeah, sequelitis. Okay, we need to move on, so we'll go on to the next scene. It's nice and short. Scene 21. Enter Selimus, Sinam, the corpses of Mustaffa and Aga with funeral pomp. Mustaffa and that should be Bajazet, surely. Mustaffa and...
No, Bajazet's dead.
Yeah, that is the corpses of, you see. The corpses of
Oh, yes,
Bajazet
sorry,
and Aga.
yes.
Sorry, there's a type
It must be.
error there. With a funeral pomp, so the funeral of Bajazet and Aga, with Mustaffa, the Janissaries at Selimus, etc.
Why thus must Selimus blind his subject eyes and strain his own to weep for Bajazet? They will not dream I made him away, when thus they see me with religious pomp to celebrate his tomb-black mortuary. And though my heart, cast in an iron mould, cannot admit the smallest dram of grief, yet that I may be thought to love him well, I'll mourn in show, though I rejoice indeed. Thus, after he hath 5 long ages lived, the sacred phoenix of Arabia loadeth his wings with precious perfumes, and on the altar of the golden sun offers himself a grateful sacrifice. Long didst thou live, triumphant Bajazet, and fear unto thy greatest enemies. And now that death, the conqueror of kings, dislodged hath thy never-dying soul, to flee unto the heavens from whence she came, and leave her frail earth pavilion, thy body in this ancient monument, where our great predecessors sleep in rest.
And the stage direction says, suppose the temple of Mahomet.
Thy woeful son Selimus thus doth place. Thou wert the phoenix of this age of ours, and diedst wrapped in the sweet perfumes of thy magnific deeds, whose lasting praise mounteth to highest heaven with golden wings. Princes, come bear your emperor company until the days of mourning be o'erpast, and then we mean to rouse false Acomat and cast him forth of Macedonia.
And they exit all. We'll run into the next scene. Scene 22. Enter Hali, Cali, Corcut's page, and 1 or 2 soldiers. Just double checking here whether Alan can... Yes, Alan is page, yes.
My lords, if I bring you not where Corcut is, then let me be hanged. But if I deliver him up unto your hands, then let me have the reward due to so good a deed.
Page, if thou show us where thy master is, be sure thou shalt be honoured for the deed, and high exalted above other men.
And
That
enter enter Corcut and Bullithrumble.
That same is he that in disguised robes accompanies yon shepherd to the fields.
The sweet content that country life affords passeth the royal pleasures of a king. For there our joys are interlaced with fears, but here no fear nor care is harboured, but a sweet calm of a most quiet state. Ah, Corcut, would thy brother Selimus but let thee live, here shouldst thou spend thy life, feeding thy sheep among these grassy lands. But sure, I wonder where my page is gone.
Corcut.
Ay me, who nameth me?
Hali, the governor of Magnesia. Poor prince, thou thoughtest in these disguised weeds to mask unseen, and happily thou mightest, but that thy page betrayed thee to us. And be not wrath with us, unhappy prince. If we do what our sovereign commands, 'tis for thy death that Selim sends for thee.
Thus I, like poor Amphiaraus, sought by hiding my estate in shepherd's coat to escape the angry wrath of Selimus. But as his wife, false Eryphile, did betray his safety for a chain of gold, so my false page hath vilely dealt with me. Pray God that thou mayest prosper so as she. Hali, I know thou sorrowest for my case, but it is bootless. Come and let us go. Corcut is ready, since it must be so.
Shepherd,
That's my profession, sir.
come, you must go with us.
Who I? Oh, alas, sir, I have a wife and 17 cradles rotting, 2 ploughs going, 2 barns filling, and a great herd of beasts feeding, and you should utterly undo me to take me to such a great charge.
Well, there is no remedy.
Exeunt all but Bullithrumble, stealing from them closely away.
The more's the pity go with you, quoth he. Marry, that'd be the way to preferment, down Holborn up Tilbury. Well, I'll keep my best joint from the strappado as well as I can hereafter. I'll have no more servants.
Exit, running away.
Okay, we have random London references. It's always nice to have. So he should have been Cockney after all. Cockney
Up
shepherds.
Tilbury, down Holborn.
Yeah. Exit Bullithrumble at a run. So it's interesting the irony of Selimus's funeral oration there. I quite like. Presumably they've got some kind of temple set up, set thing. The stage direction notes it, so presumably there was something physical.
I found it interesting that Bajazet's soul was feminine.
Yes.
Yeah, we had this problem before with his eldest son.
And then
Right at the beginning, everybody thought that his eldest son must be his wife or his daughter because of this female bit. It's very odd.
Oh, this wasn't a convention then in Elizabethan plays that the soul was a feminine entity.
If it was, I've never come across it.
Not that I've noticed, no. But it might be in some people's oeuvre. It's a really interesting question.
Could it just be bitch type?
It could be. It could be. I'm just actually looking in my one, which is
right. Yeah, but I hadn't thought about that.
no. It's she in the 94 as well.
Right.
I mean, you get the concept of the anima and the animus, don't you? And the fact that
Anima is definitely feminine.
Yeah, the fact that the anima is for the man and the animus is for the woman. But I mean, I don't remember there being any references to that concept in Tudor literature or anything really.
Yeah, but they're definitely running with it as a running theme in this play. So it's a good point to note. It's an interesting gendering of soul and body. Possibly it's a comment on Bajazet as a martial person. I don't know. Maybe that's the point being made.
I'm very disappointed in Corcut.
Are you?
He's a philosopher, and the best he can come up with is the sweet content that country life affords passes the royal pleasures of a king. I mean, honestly, have you ever heard such a thought before anywhere?
Well, it's that pastoral dream, which is the connection. That's why we're doing this with a Raymond to Paris. I wanted, the deep pastoral connection between the two plays.
Clutching at straws.
Yeah.
More than anything, we were promised necromancy, and nothing has come up. There's no magic.
No, so far not a lot. The scene with the page and etc. I mean, it's and Bullithrumble just sort of running away. It's I don't think we see him again. I don't know. I could be wrong. But it does feel like he's done his dramatic purpose and no longer needs to be there anymore.
But from the audience's point of view, it is absolutely imperative that he escapes.
You can't kill the clown.
He seems to escape pretty easily, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, apart from Looking Glass of London, that's the only play we've got where the clown is killed at the end. Explicitly. Usually they get away in some fashion. They might get banished, or they might get, they very rarely get your actual execution. Okay, shall we move forward? We have a quite a longish scene coming up now. So scene 23. Enter Selimus, Sinam, Bassa, Mustaffa, and the Janissaries.
Sinam, we hear our brother Acomat is fled away from Macedonia to ask for aid of Persian Ishmael and the Egyptian Soldan, our chief foes.
Herein, my lord, I like his enterprise, for if they give him aid, as sure they will, being your highness vowed enemies, you shall have just cause for to war on them, for giving succour against you to your foe. You know they are two mighty potentates, and may be hurtful neighbours to your grace, and to enrich the Turkish diadem with two so worthy kingdoms as they are, would be eternal glory to your name.
By heaven, Sinam, thou'rt a warrior and worthy counsellor unto a king.
Sound within. Enter Cali and Hali with Corcut and his page.
Oh, how now? What news?
My gracious lord, we here present to you your brother Corcut, who in Smyrna coasts feeding a flock of sheep upon a down, his traitorous page betrayed into our hands.
Thanks, ye bold brethren, and for that false part, let the vile page be famished to death.
Selim, in this I see thou art a prince, to punish treason with condign reward.
Oh, sir, I love the fruit that treason brings, but those that are the traitors, them I hate. But Corcus, could not your philosophy keep you safe from my Janissaries' hands? We thought you had old Gige's wondrous ring, that so you were invisible to us.
Selim, thou dealst unkindly with thy brother to seek my death and make a jest of me. Upbraidest thou me with my philosophy? Why, this I learned by studying learned arts, that I can bear my fortune as it falls, and that I fear no whit thy cruelty. Since thou wilt deal no otherwise with me than thou hast dealt with aged Bajazet.
By heavens, Corcut, Thou shalt surely die for slandering Selim with my father's death.
Then let me freely speak my mind this once, for thou shalt never hear me speak again.
Nay, we can give such losers leave to speak.
Then, Selim, hear thy brother's dying words, and mark them well, for ere thou die thyself, thou shalt perceive all things will come to pass, that Corcut doth divine before his death. Since my vain flight from fair Magnesia, Selim, I have conversed with Christians, and learned of them the way to save my soul, and please the anger of the highest God. 'Tis he that made this pure crystalline vault which hangeth over our unhappy heads. From thence he doth behold each sinner's fault, and though our sins under our feet he treads, and for a while seem for to wink at us, but it is to recall us from our ways. But if we do like headstrong sons neglect to hearken to our loving Father's voice, then in his anger will he us reject, and give us over to our wicked choice. Selim, before his dreadful majesty there lies a book written with bloody lines, where our offences all are registered, which, if we do not hastily repent, we are reserved to lasting punishment. Thou, wretched Selimus, hast greatest need to ponder these things in thy secret thoughts, if thou consider what strange massacres and cruel murders thou hast caused be done. Think on the death of woeful Bajazet. Doth not his ghost still haunt thee for revenge? Selim, in Chirlu didst thou set upon our aged father in his sudden flight. In Chirlu shalt thou die a grievous death. And if thou wilt not change thy greedy mind, thy soul shall be tormented in dark hell, where woe and never ceasing woe shall sound about thy ever damned soul. Now, Selim, I have spoken, let me die. I never will entreat thee for my life. Selim, farewell. Thou God of Christians, receive my dying soul into thy hands.
And he strangles him.
What, is he dead? Then Selim is safe, and hath no more co-rivals in the crown. As for Acomat, he soon shall see his Persian aid cannot save him from me. Now, Sinam, march to fair Amasia walls, where Acomat's stout queen immures herself, and girt the city with warlike siege. For since her husband is my enemy, I see no cause why she should be my friend. They say young Amurath and Aladin, her bastard brood, are come to succor her, but I'll prevent this, their officiousness, and send their soul down to their grandfather. Mustaffa, you shall keep Byzantium, while I and Sinam girt Amasia.
Exit Selimus, Sinam, Janissaries, all save one.
It grieves my soul that Bajazet's fair line should be eclipsed thus by Selimus, whose cruel soul will never be at rest till none remain of Ottoman's fair race, but he himself. Yet for Bajazet loved Mustaffa dear unto his death, I will show mercy to his family. Go, Sirrah, post to Acomat's young sons, and bid them, as they mean to save their lives, to fly in haste from fair Amasia, lest cruel Selim put them to the sword.
Exit 1 to Amurath and Aladin.
And now, Mustaffa, prepare thou thy neck, for thou art next to die by Selim's hand. Stern Sinam Bassa grudgeth still at thee, and crabbed Hali stormeth at thy life. All repine that thou art honoured so, to be the brother of their emperor.
Enter Solyma.
But wherefore comes my lovely Solyma?
Mustaffa, I am come to seek thee out. If ever thy distressed Solyma found grace and favour in thy manly heart, fly hence with me unto some desert island, for if we tarry here, we are but dead. This night when fair Lucina's shining wane was past the chair of bright Cassiope, a fearful vision appeared to me. Methought, Mustaffa, I beheld thy neck, so often folded in my loving arms, in foul disgrace of Bassa's fair degree, with a vile halter basely compassed, and while I poured my tears on thy dead corpse, a greedy lion with wide gaping throat seized on my trembling body with his feet, and in a moment rent me all to naught. Fly, sweet Mustaffa, or we be but dead.
Why should we fly, beauteous Solyma, moved by a vain and fantastic dream? Or if we did fly, whither should we fly? Into the furthest part of Asia. Knowst thou not, Solyma, kings have long hands? Come, come, my joy, return again with me, and banish hence these melancholy thoughts.
That's an interesting little exchange to end on. It's a really interesting sort of series of exchanges throughout, actually. I have to say, following on from Helen's point about Corcut's, all the build-up about him being a great philosopher, etc., and he's had this conversion, so he does some preachifying at people, and I have to say, my note in the margin here is, "Oh, strangle him already." I'm not impressed with Corcut at all. I'm sure the audience at the time was supposed to be, but I mean, if anyone is stupid enough for someone to go up to him when you're in disguise and just say your name, and he goes, "Oh yeah, me, yeah." Is that the Great Escape? Is that when the chap getting on the bus at the end and they say goodbye in English, and he goes, "Oh yeah, it's that." He's not very good. So yeah, he's dead. But Mustaffa, he realizes he's a bit screwed.
That stage direction, by the way, is unclear. It needs clarification, I think.
Which one?
Oh, he strangles him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did say he strangles him, but it's clearly somebody. It's again his strangulation squad is doing that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I assumed it was Selimus who did it.
No, he doesn't do his own dirty work.
Right. Yeah.
And also by saying "What is he dead?" it's like he's been, having an aperitif in the corner,
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me, Gov.
Yeah.
I saw him actually filing his nails.
Yeah.
Ali was ordered earlier to strangle.
Mm.
There we are.
It's Hali.
Mm.
All right.
But he's got otherwise nothing to say, so
Yeah.
just be a henchman.
So yeah, that's obviously his job in court is Chief Strangler. I mean, it's I think
important job.
Sorry, say again, Elizabeth.
It's a pretty important job since Sonura. There's Sonura.
Yeah.
A lot of people to be strangled.
Mustaffa has got all sorts of things going on. Partly he thinks that Selimus is overdoing this family murdering business. And partly he thinks that he himself is the subject of a great deal of court intrigue. And either way, he reckons he's screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting, having admitted that, and then Solyma comes in and says, "Maybe we should run away," and he's going, "No, it'll be fine."
Yeah.
Wasn't he the one though who earlier in the play was doing a bit of double dealing with Bajazet? So I mean,
Yes.
it's like he's a compulsive liar.
Yeah, he's playing. Oh, yeah, Valentina.
Oh, it's nice to see a woman, even briefly.
Yeah.
Woman number 2 in this play.
I'm wondering if they only had one boy who was playing the page and all the women.
Yeah, because the page is down as female as well, isn't? The page is referred to as she at one point. I don't know if that was consistent.
But the whole thing is that I don't think you ever get more than one woman on the stage at any one time.
And we haven't been exactly fulsome with, apart from the Chronicle of King Lear, we haven't really had that many female parts full stop with Green's Men's plays. They've been much sparser than with some later or other company plays.
Yes, because I mean the Children of the Chapel Royal, in the first half of the Arraignment of Paris, there was very few male characters. And
having lots and lots of boys, you can have as many women as you like, and they do. Paul's as well. There's lots and lots of play between genders that you don't get in these playhouse dramas.
One thing I found interesting was I recognised this whole theme of a female character running into her husband and saying, "I had this terrible dream that you were dead," and I recognised that from another political drama of this period, shall we say?
Oh, well, they're all over the place.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought as much.
Are there other thoughts? Okay, let's go to the next scene, scene 24. Enter Aladin, Murath, or Amurath, right? I see, yes, and the messenger.
Messenger, is it true that Selimus is not far hence encamped with his host? And means he to disjoin the hapless sons from helping our distressed mother's town?
'Tis true, my lord, and if you love your lives, fly from the bounds of his dominions, for he you know is most unmerciful.
Here, messenger, take this for thy reward.
And exit the messenger.
But we, sweet Aladin, let us depart, for in the now in the quiet silence of the night, that ere the windows of the morn be ope, we may be far enough from Selimus. I'll to Egyptus.
I to Persia.
And the scene ends with them very, very sensibly running away. Scene 25. Enter Selimus, Sinam, Hali, Cali, and Janissaries.
Is it certain, Hali, they are gone, and that Mustaffa moved them to fly?
Certain, my lord. I met the messenger as he returned from young Alminda, and learned of them Mustaffa was the man that certified princes of your will.
It is enough. Mustaffa shall abide at a dear price his pitiful intent. Hali, go fetch Mustaffa and his wife.
And exit Hali.
For though she be sister to Selimus, yet loved she him better than Selimus, so that if he do die at our command, and she should live, soon would she work a mean to work revenge for her Mustapha's death.
Enter Hali, Mustaffa, and Solyma.
False of thy faith and traitor to thy king, did we so highly always honour thee, and doest thou thus requite our love with treason? For why shouldst thou send to young Aladin and Amurath, the sons of Acomat, to give them notice of our secrecies, knowing they were my vowed enemies?
I do not seek to lessen my offence, great Selimus, but truly do protest I did it not for hatred of your grace, so help me God and holy Mahomet, but for I grieved to see the famous stock of worthy Bajazet fall to decay. Therefore I sent the princes both away. Your Highness knows Mustaffa was the man that saved you in the battle of Churlu, when I and all the warlike Janizars had hedged your person in a dangerous ring. Yet I took pity on your danger there, and made a way for you to escape by flight. But those your Bassas have incensed you, repining at Mustapha's dignity. Stern Siam grinds his angry teeth at me. Old Hali's sons do bend their brows at me, and are aggrieved that Mustapha hath showed himself a better man than they. And yet the Janizars mourn for me. They know Mustapha never proved false. I have been as true to Selimus as ever subject to his sovereign. So help me God and holy Mahomet.
You did it not because you hated us, but for you loved the sons of Acomat. Sinam, I charge thee quickly strangle him. He loves not me that loves mine enemies. As for your holy protestation, it cannot enter into Selim's ears. For why, Mustapha, every merchant man will praise his own ware, be it ne'er so bad.
We appear to have lost Solyma. Solyma, are you there? Elizabeth? Just hold. We'll just pause for a second, see if Elizabeth, are you there? Can you hear us? Returning Elizabeth. Hello, Solyma. You are your cue has come.
Sorry, Robert.
That's all right.
For Solymus' sake, mighty Selimus, spare my Mustaffa's life and let me die. Or if thou wilt not be so gracious, yet let me die before I see his death.
Nay, Solyma, yourself shall also die, because you may be in the self-same fault. Why stayest thou, Sinam? Strangle him, I say.
And Sinam strangles him indeed.
Ah, Selimus, he made thee emperor, and wilt thou thus requite his benefits? Thou art a cruel tiger, and no man that couldst endure to see before thy face so brave a man as my Mustaffa was, cruelly strangled for so small a fault.
Thou shalt not after live him, Solyma. 'Twere pity thou shouldst want the company of thy dear husband. Sinam, strangle her. And now to fair Amartia let us march. Acomat's wife and her unmanly host will not be able to endure our sight, much less make strong resistance in hard fight.
And they exit. And sadly, Solyma doesn't even get a stage direction there to indicate it's just between a line. Sinam strangle her, and it's like Selimus, just wipes his hands, turns around, and gets on with the next bit of business. So there's 2 deaths in that scene for those scanning through. It's interesting. We've got that little bit of Selimus's line where he just goes, "For why shouldst thou send to young Aladin and Amurath, the sons of Acomat?" For anyone who might have been coming late. There's just that little bit of just explaining again as we go into the final acts. There was a little bit of light there.
There's a certain amount of anagramming of Aladin or Aladin, as I tend to think of him. Most of them I found and sorted, but I've missed out a Linda. I don't know why he gets anagram, but he does. Every now and then.
Yeah.
Semi-literate compositor.
Where it's just, it happens. It happens. It's sort of more the inevitable strangulation scenes. And we've had a lot of strangulation going on here. It seems to be the preferred method outside of the more excessive eye gouging that is available.
It was typically in this court done with a silken rope. For people of rank.
Oh, I see. So it's actually a sign of almost favour.
Yes. It's yeah.
The silken rope. I mean, I remember that being explored when I went round Topkapi Palace some years ago.
Okay, we are rattling towards the end of the play, and I think we can move on to the next scene, scene 26, as we've got to enter Acomat, Tonombeus, or Beus, as it's spelt there, or Tonombey, Vizier, Regan, and their soldiers.
Welcome, my lords, unto my native soil. The crown whereof by right is due to me, though Selim by the Janissary's choice, through usurpation keep the same from me. You know, contrary to my father's mind, he was enthroned by the Bassa's will, and after his installing wickedly, by poison made good Bajazet to die, and struggled Corcut, and exiled me. These injuries we come for to revenge, and raise his siege from fair Amasia's walls.
Prince of Amasia, and the rightful heir unto the mighty Turkish diadem, with willing heart great Tonombey hath left the Egyptian Nilus and my father's court to aid thee in thy undertaken war, and by the great Usan Cassano's ghost, companion unto mighty Tamburlaine, from whom my father lineally descends, fortune shall show herself to cross to me. But we will thrust Selimus from his throne and revest Acomat in the empery.
Thanks to the uncontrolled Tonombey, but let us haste to Amasia to succour my besieged citizens. None but my queen is overseer there, and too weak is all her policy against so great a foe as Selimus.
And they exit, going straight into the next scene, scene 27. Enter Selimus, Sinam, Hali, Cali, and the Janissaries.
Summon a parley, sirs, that we may know whether these mushrooms here will yield or no.
A parley is called, Queen of Amasia and her soldiers on the walls.
What cravest thou, bloodthirsty parricide? Is't not enough that thou hast foully slain thy loving father, noble Bajazet, and strangled Corcut, thine unhappy brother, slain brave Mustaffa and fair Solyma, because they favoured my unhappy sons? But thou must yet seek for more massacres. Go, wash thy guilty hands in lukewarm blood, enrich thy soldiers with robberies, yet do the heavens still bear an equal eye, and vengeance follows thee, even at the heels.
Queen of Amasia, wilt thou yield thyself?
First shall the overflowing Euripus of swift Euboea stop his restless course, and Phoebe's bright globe bring the day from the west, and quench his hot flames in the eastern sea. Thy bloody sword, ungracious Selimus, sheathed in the bowels of thy dearest friends, thy wicked guard which still attends on thee, fleshing themselves in murder, lust, and rape, what hope of favour? What security? Rather, what death do they not promise me? Then think not, Selimus, that we will yield, but look for strong resistance at our hands.
Why then, you never daunted Janizars, advance your shields and uncontrolled spears, your conquering hands in foemen's blood embay, for Selimus himself will lead the way.
There's an alarum, they're beat off the walls, there's another alarum, and enter Selimus, Sinam, etc., etc. But this time with Acomat's queen as prisoner.
Now, sturdy dame, where are your men of war to guard your person from my angry sword? What? Though braved us on your city walls, like to that Amazonian Menelep, leaving the banks of swift stream Thermodon to challenge combat with great Hercules, yet Selimus hath plucked your haughty plumes, nor can your spouse, rebellious Acomat, nor Aladin, or Amurath, your sons, deliver you from our victorious hands.
Selim, I scorn thy threatenings as thyself, and though ill hap hath given me to thy hands, yet I will never beg my life of thee. Fortune may chance to frown as much on thee, and Acomat, whom thou dost scorn so much, may take thy base Tartarian concubine, as well as thou hast took his loyal queen. Thou hast not fortune tied in a chain, nor dost thou like a wary pilot sit and wisely steer this all-containing barge. Thou art a man as those whom thou hast slain, and some of them were better far than thou.
Strangle her, Hali, let us scold no more. Now let us march to meet with Acomat. He brings with him that great Egyptian bug, strong Tonombey, Uzankasano's son. But we shall soon, with our fine-tempered swords, engrave our prowess on their bergamets. Were they as mighty as fell of force as those old earth-bred brethren, which once heap hill on hill to scale the starry sky, when Briareus, armed with 100 hands, flung forth 100 mountains at great Jove, and when the monstrous giant Monicus hurled Mount Olympus at great Mars his targ, and darted cedars at Minerva's shield.
And they all exit. Once again, we have the Queen there, who doesn't even get a stage direction at the point of strangulation. And once again, Selimus just sort of carries on regardless. We have obviously a lengthy fight scene, always exciting and fun. But there is a question as we go about to go into the very final scene. We've seen Acomat go off and meet Tonombey there, who is, they keep mentioning who in Tamburlaine the Great is Usam Kaseni, and they keep name checking Tamburlaine like it's going out of fashion at this little part of the play. So the question as we go into the final scene is, who will win between Selimus and Acomat, and more importantly, do we care? They're both gits.
Awful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Who do you root for?
Just put them both in a bag and have done with it.
I mean, from the moment Bajazet died, there is a sense that actually, you know, the story was about Bajazet, actually, the way that and the court around him, and that actually what happens afterwards, there is an element of narrative that I'm interested in, but actually a lot of it I'm not. And actually I just kind of want just to see a certain amount of melee fighting and perhaps just chaos, and then you just leave it as that, and actually going into the detail of what Selimus, because Selimus actually doesn't seem to have the interior life that Bajazet did. Even though he's had all these speeches, he just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
He's weirdly boring, which, considering what he's done, I mean, I think it's so funny that they keep name checking Tamburlaine, because I want to say to the playwright, don't do that. Don't keep reminding people about Tamburlaine, because, like, you know, he's a really complex character, and this guy not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because the play has so many good elements to it, but it is that the flaw seems to be that the central character just has, because the opening speech was, "I'm good, I'm evil," for no apparent reason, and you've got nowhere to go.
I think it started to fall flat when Bajazet dies. Because from the very beginning, even with the long speeches, Bajazet seems to hold the narrative up. And once he's gone, it's just Selimus and Acomat. And no, we like neither of them.
It was Bajazet's dilemma about how to get out of this problem of having three sons living and not being able to make a choice or even retire safely.
Yes.
And that dilemma went, and then you got a small Mustaffa dilemma, which quite honestly didn't amount to much.
No.
I mean, it was once again, I'm screwed either way.
Yeah.
But it didn't replace the hole that Bajazet had left.
Yes.
You know, and we've mentioned that it's advertised as part one. You know, I don't know whether the original audience saw it as part one or just simply as the tragedy of Selimus, and they thought about doing a part two after the fact, or whether that was always part of the construction, following on from the success of other two-part plays, which we've done. We've done Tamburlaine, we've done the Spanish comedy and tragedy. We've done that sort of idea of ongoing narratives. So whether the audience is sitting here going, who's going to win, Acomat, Selimus? Maybe they'll both die. That's the outcome I'm rooting for.
Yeah, but who's going to kill them? I had my money pinned on Corcut early on, but that all came to naught.
Yeah.
No, he always was a bit of a bit useless.
He was in the wrong play.
Yeah.
He totally was.
He was here he should have been there on Tuesday. He would have had so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish the play then. This is, I've got it down as one scene, but it's sort of overlapping, interlocking bits and bobs. So, Elarum enter Selimus, Sinam, Cali, Hali, and the Janissaries at one door, and Acomat, Tonombey, Regan, Vizier, I haven't seen Regan for a while, and all the Vizier, and their soldiers at another.
What? Are the urchins crept out of their dens under the conduct of this porcupine? Dost thou not tremble, Acomat, at us, to see how courage masketh in our looks, and white-winged victory sits on our swords? Captain of Egypt, thou that vaunt'st thyself, sprung from great Tamburlaine, the Scythia thief, who bade thee enterprise this bold attempt, to set thy feet within the Turkish confines, or lift thy hands against our majesty.
Rather, O Trebizond, your squared words and broad-mouthed terms can never conquer us. We come resolved to pull the Turkish crown, which thou dost wrongfully detain from me, by conquering sword from off thy coward crest.
Acomat, sith the quarrel toucheth none but thee and me, I dare and challenge thee.
Should he accept the combat of a boy whose unripe years and far unriper wit, like to the bold, foolhardy Phaeton that sought the role of the chariot of the sun, hath moved thee to undertake the empery?
Thou that resolveth in peremptory terms to call him boy that scorns to cope with thee, but thou canst better use thy bragging blade than thou canst rule thy overflowing tongue. Soon shalt thou know that Selim's mighty arm is able to overthrow poor Tonombey.
And so there's an alarum. Tonombey beats Hali and Cali in, so they flee the field. He wins that little bout. Next bout, Selim beats Tonombey in. There's an alarum, and it says exit Tonombey, but he has dialogue next, so I'm assuming he exits in a moment. Maybe he exits and comes straight back on again. Who knows?
The field is lost, and Acomat is taken. Ah, Tonombey, how canst thou show thy face to thy victorious sire, thus conquered? A matchless knight is warlike Selimus, and like a shepherd's monks a swarm of gnats dings down the flying Persians with their swords. Twice I encountered him hand to hand, and twice returned foiled and ashamed, for never yet since I could manage arms could any match with mighty Tonombey. But this heroic emperor Selimus, why stand I still, and rather do not fly, the great occasion which the victors make?
And yes, exit Tonombey, alarum, enter Selimus, Sinambassa, and Acomat, prisoner, Hali, Cali, and other Janissaries.
Thus, when the coward Greeks fled to their ships, the noble Hector, all besmeared in blood, returned in triumph to the walls of Troy. A gallant trophy, Bassus, have we won, beating the never-foiled Tonombey and hewing passage through the Persians, as when a lion, raving for his prey, falleth upon a drove of horned bulls, and rends them strongly in his kingly paws, or Mars, armed in his adamantine coat, mounted upon his fiery shining wain, scatters the troops of warlike Thracians, and warms cold Hebrus with hot streams of blood. Brave Sinam, for thy noble prisoner, thou shalt be general of my Janizars. Beliabe of fair Natalia, now, and now Acomat, thou monster of thy world, why stoopst thou not with reverence to thy king?
Selim, if thou have gotten victory, then use it to thy contentation. If I had conquered, no, assuredly, I would have said as much, and more to thee. No, I disdain them as I do thyself, and scorn to stoop or bend my lordly knee to such a tyrant as is Selimus. Thou slewest my queen without regard or care of love or duty or thine own good name. Then, Selim, take that which thy hap doth give. Disgraced, displayest, I longer loath to live.
Then Sinam strangle him. Now he is dead, who doth remain to trouble Selimus? Now I am I king alone, and none but I, for since my father's death until this time, I never wanted some competitors. Now, as the weary wandering traveller that hath his steps guided through many lands, through boiling soil of Africa and Ind, when he returns unto his native home, sits down among his friends, and with delight declares the travels he hath o'erpassed. So mayst thou, Selimus, for thou hast trod the monster garden paths that lead to crowns. Ha ha! I smile to think how Selimus, like the Egyptian Ibis, hath expelled those swarming armies of swift-winged snakes that sought to overrun my territories. When sultring heat the earth's green children spoils, from forth the fens of venomous Africa, the generation of those flying snakes do band themselves in troops and take their way to Nilus bounds. But those industrious birds, those ibises meet them in set array, and eat them up like to a swarm of gnats, preventing such a mischief from the land. But see how unkind nature deals with them. From out their eggs rises the basilisk, whose only sight kills millions of men. When Acomat lifted his ungracious hands against my aged father Bajazet, they sent for me, and like Egypt's bird, have rid that monster and his fellow mates. But as from Ibis springs the basilisk, whose only touch burneth up stones and trees, so Selimus has proved a cockatrice, and clean consumed all the family of noble Ottoman, except himself. And now to you, my neighbour emperors, that durst lend aid to Selim's enemies, Sinam, whose soldans of the Orient, Egypt and Persia, Selimus will quell, or he himself will sink to lowest hell. This winter will we rest and breathe ourselves, but soon a Zephyrus' sweet-smelling blast shall greatly creep over the flowery meads, we'll have a fling at the Egyptian crown, and join it unto ours, or lose our own.
And he and everyone exits, and the epilogue comes on. Thus have we brought victorious Selimus unto the crown of Great Arabia. Next shall you see him with triumphant sword, dividing kingdoms into equal shares, and give them to their warlike followers. If this first part, gentles, do like you well, the second part shall greater murders tell. Except it doesn't, because we don't have one.
Doesn't mean there isn't one.
Well, that's the question. I'm not 100% certain whether we have any references to there being a part two. We know this is called part one. I don't know that we actually even have references to the existence of a part two. I think this is speculative.
Oh.
So there isn't a part two?
No.
And we're not doing it?
No.
Thank God for that.
Seriously, when you said earlier that there was a part two, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to just make sure I'm not there that week.
Oh, Sarah.
Block booked for the barber or something.
Dan, I see a hand.
Just I guess to talk about a little about the authorship of that, because the TG that's ascribed on the 1638 quarto was not on the first quarto. So one thinks that it might have been, somebody might have been trying to credit Thomas Goff with this.
Yes, which is unfortunate because he would have only been about 3 at the time.
Right, exactly. Right.
Works.
He had his Courageous Turk, which had just been printed in 1631, or which was in manuscript, The Tragedy of Amurath, and then The Raging Turk, or Bajazet II, which had been printed 1631 and 1632. So clearly somebody thought this might be a good idea to credit him with this, thinking, oh, same subject matter there.
So the question of authorship does come up, and the one that generally people ascribe this play to, but usually with a question mark. And we know it's a Queen's Men play, so there are various options available, but one of them is Robert Greene. And as we have read, with the exception of a comedy, which I think stylistically isn't very helpful, all the other firmly attributed or even semi-attributed Greene plays, that's sort of the question is, did anyone feel that in the room?
It's, in my view, it is without question Greene. I don't think, he's all over it.
Really?
What way? In what ways, rather, do you feel that?
It's the way he uses particular similes. The thing is, because I've been doing some work for Rob on getting these reading ready, I've been doing them backwards so as not to prejudice the... when I work on plays, I start on the last line and go upwards, because that way the plot doesn't get in the way of the words. It may sound crazy, but it works.
No, it makes sense.
And
Yeah.
but actually doing it, I've had to concentrate a lot on the way, if he's using a particular image, what he does with it. And this is him. I am in. Well, hang on. Who wrote that Friar Bungay Rides Again?
Well, we don't know. It might be. It's you know it's potentially bits of it's green, but there's no
Well,
firm
whoever
attribution.
wrote that wrote this.
I saw shaking of heads from others who's been with the group for a while. So anyone want to leap in there? I mean, trust me, I don't really care. I'm happy to talk about it as a Queen's Men's play, and that sense of they have quite a good sense of what the house style is. So there's an element of that sometimes gets in the way of these kinds of things. But similarities with other plays we've done. I see Alan's got his hand up. Go with Alan first.
I think the thing is, we can say, fine, we've given it a life, we've given it a reading, and now let it go back and rest in deserved obscurity.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far at all.
Didn't work for me at all.
I have. Oh, well, I'll come to that at the end. Dan, going back to the question, you strongly didn't like the idea of green by your head movements? Is that true?
The thing is that I've read. I mean, I'm sure you've read it as well, Rob. That there's an attribution to green in England's Parnassus of certain lines from this. So yes, that would give some. That is some evidence that it could have been green, and as well as the fact it's a Queen's. The Queen's Players play. This does not have, from the green plays that we've read and from the ones I've looked at myself, the same kind of whimsy that Green seems to inject into pretty much all of his plays. And that, for that reason, the other thing too is that Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay was also a play that was being reprinted around this time period as well, and which was very popular. Now, I understand the attribution to Thomas Goff, but you could have used green as well to event this, and not working for me.
I agree with you about the whimsy. That is...
Well, whimsy isn't universal in green. You know, the Alphonsus with long speeches and other elements there. I mean, structurally, I don't have a problem with it being green, and also after doing Looking Glass as well. Okay, that some of that's Thomas Lodge. And when you get this random bit of Christian conversion, which feels very late green, and the bit that felt very a nod to the past with Bullithrumble, actually, that felt like the kind of nod to the past we got in James IV, actually, with the random interlude scene in that. And just I'm willing to say that it's perfectly plausible. I'm also willing to say it's perfectly plausible that lots of other people had a hand in it as well.
Right, especially if you're writing, I mean, as the theory always goes, for the actors. I mean, whoever's in their stable of playwrights is taking full advantage, or not full advantage, obviously, in this play, but knows who they're writing for as well.
There might also be a tension if this is essentially a commission to say, write something a bit like Tamburlaine, and your heart is not in it, then maybe you end up with a play a bit like this. Anyone want to leap in on that before we talk about the play itself? Anyone have strong opinions? Nobody cares. That's fine. Perfectly valid position. I distrust the whole sort of overplaying the whole question of attribution. I don't think it matters too much, especially with a play like this. So the play overall, we've had one nay for this play. I'm going to prefix before we go into discussing the play generally. My thing is that, you know, this is material. All plays are material. And what is the potential of this material? I, as a director and dramaturg and producer, I'm to some degree not interested in plays that are box fresh and perfect, and you just add some actors and put it on stage. A text like this appeals to me because it's asking to be interfered with. editorially, directorially, and the potential in this play, I think, is huge. I think Bajazet, just give it a new title. I think the focusing on Bajazet, I think that opening speech from Bajazet is just so good in the way that Selimus's opening speech is not. And I find that fascinating. Just to frame that, you can do anything with this text, as well as reacting what the text is. Just thoughts about it as we've got a reasonable amount of time in lieu. So, Valentina, you've been with us, I think, throughout this little journey. How do you react to this as a play?
I mean, I quite liked it. It does have some, like, in order to stage it and to hold an audience attention, it does need some work. But I find it maybe because it's so bizarre in the structure with those long speeches at the beginning and then action and then back to long speeches by somebody else. And then there's a bit of story here, a bit of story there. I actually quite enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm not I think it's probably more interesting once you put it on stage with all the movement and the deaths and all that than just read like that.
Who wants it? Sally, you've come in late in this process, obviously. So you've come in at the death, as it were. Any general thoughts about the play or how you react to it? Or
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of offstage action in this play. The whole Corcut sequence relies on a lot of backstory that we don't see, and there's a lot of characters who disappear for a long time and eventually come back. So there's potential for interpolating maybe wordless scenes that sort of bring some of that action on stage. There's a lot that happens that we sort of get narrated to us rather than seeing.
Yes, the potential for dumb show, which again keeps bringing us back to Gorboduc, actually, which is how I was sort of thinking about it the other day. Francis, again, you've joined us for this process. Your first complete play with us. How did it land for you?
Well, it started off very promisingly, I felt, but I found the end a bit disappointing, and reading Selimus in that, in this last day in which last session in which we're doing it, I found him a very monotonous character. I mean, when he keeps saying strangle him or strangle her, and I'm just thinking, oh God, not again. So he's pretty much a one-note character. And he is the title character, which as you say, I find a bit strange. As you say, Bajazet is much more interesting, although he gets a bit monotonous towards the end as well, I think. Yeah, but all of that said, I certainly enjoyed reading it. And if I heard that there was going to be a production of it, either online or here in Amsterdam, I'd certainly make a point of seeing it.
Well, it's our aim is to do everything. So one day there will be a production, he said. That's what this is part of a process. We start here and we move downwards. Elizabeth, how was it for you?
I really enjoyed it towards the end. I think it's more about the history of the sort of the Turkish Middle Eastern wars that I quite enjoyed, because I'm used to, Henry V, Richard II, the all is true. Not mentioning the name, but I'm just used to that's the only history plays that I know. So to have a history play which is set in the Turkish side, I think it's quite enjoyable.
Yes, we've got the famous victories of Henry V and Thomas of Woodstock, which is Richard II. We've got lots of different versions of history plays from England, and to call something like this a history play. I've tried to talk over my dog. It's going interesting. Frames it in a very different way, and relatively modern history for them as well, for the time, which I think leads us to Helen. Final thoughts from you?
Well, it's one of an enormous number of Turkish plays. I mean, there are whole published volumes of Turkish early modern plays. And there seems to be this fascination with the bloodthirstiness of them. And I don't know, I think I have to concur that this did not end as well as it did, but what got me all the way through was the use of language. The incredible descriptions of things and the long metaphors. There's some lovely stuff in there, but how you bring it out, I don't know.
It needs a tidy. It needs a gardener. It needs a gardener. Dan, have I come to you? No, I don't think I have it. Yeah.
I want to like this play a lot more than I do. Unfortunately, I've been giving the thumbs up and big thumbs up to pretty much every single green or green co-authored play we've done. But I'm finding that while I agree there's a lot of rich poetry in this, all I kept thinking, especially at the beginning, was we're going to need some really damn talented actors to do these monologues. I love having projections and modernized productions or dumb shows or whatever, but when you feel like you need to have them, it's another story too. That's a whole other thing in terms of, do I want to actually watch this production, or do I even want to? The challenge of it is what intrigues me, but then we've read so many other plays where they're not at all read, not at all seen, like James IV, where it's just bursting with potential. So many things where you can add things or not add them and it will still be great. It's missing that, and as I've said before, tragedies I think need a good dose of comedy in them, and that we have to wait that long for a funny scene or create funny scenes out of things it's just not appealing to me as much as I wish it would. Especially when you look at Thomas Goff's Raging Turk and Courageous Turk, which to me are far superior plays.
40 plus years in the future, though. Sarah, final thoughts from you?
I pretty much agree with everything Daniel said, actually. I find it absolutely extraordinary that a play that starts so well and has so much gorgeous language and imagery in it turns out, and also has so much death and war and violence in it, turns out to be so tedious. I'm like, how does it manage to have all those things? And yet by the end of it, I was like a bored 3-year-old in the back of the car, like, oh, we're nearly there yet. Oh, we're nearly there yet. Oh, we're nearly there yet. It's like, oh man, what a waste. I do think there's lots in it that's got masses of potential, but in terms of giving the garden a quick tidy up, my God, I think you'd need a digger. I think you need a JCB to kind of like do some major re-landscaping. I mean, there's definitely lots of good stuff in there, and you could you'd have to subtract a lot, and then you'd maybe have to add in quite a lot as well. But then I do think, well, why would you? Because as Dan said, there are just so many great plays. And yes, okay, if you want to get them all staged, then obviously this is part of that early modern canon. But like, I don't know, I was just really left feeling fairly astounded by it, that bits of it can be so great, and yet I really did not like it. I found it dull.
But okay, just on that, are you talking about today, yesterday, or Wednesday? I mean, there is one element of this process where we're splitting it over days, where you can spend one day absolutely loving it, and the next day you don't.
Yeah,
and
that's
we've had this in evening sessions as well, where we do things in 2 parts, and we've been in gales of laughter in the first half. And the second half, we're all there full of expectation, but a day's passed and suddenly nothing works, and a play dies. And I don't know if that's actually the play or us.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, you're right in terms of even within a session, because day one, that opening speech of Bajazet's, I was like, oh, this is going to be really good. And then Selimus had his massive monologue, which, I mean, to be fair, I was doing, so it's difficult to sometimes pick up everything that you like about something when you're actually reading, because you just, you know, when you're sight reading. But I was just left a bit disappointed by the end of that day, because I thought, oh, that started so well, and then, oh, okay, right, we'll see. It just strikes me, I mean, yeah, you would absolutely have to rename it and maybe chop the end off as well and make it about Bajazet, because he is the complex character who draws you in. I mean, Selimus, every time he comes on stage, stuff gets really tedious. It's like, even Acomat, even, you know, day two, yeah, it was very bloody. There were eyes being pulled out and whatnot, but it had a kind of bounce to it, you know. But once Selimus reappeared, it's like, oh, all the energy just seemed to drain out of the play. So it's almost like he's the one you need to remove, and then if you remove him, well, what are you left with, kind of thing? You're left with a great play, actually, about Bajazet, but it's not the play that TG wrote.
It's really interesting. Yes, I mean, last session we had very little Selimus, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Generally. Valentina, are you holding your hand because you want to say something? Do jump in.
Yeah. No, I was just. I mean, I think I agree with Sarah. Like the after Bajazet's death, it does feel very much like that is the prequel of the second part. I said that is the bridge that is there to be like to make people interested in the second part. Because even the resolution is quite quick. It's just yeah. But nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we just sort of need to defenestrate Selimus to make Selimus work. Which, to be fair, that's more Acomat's line. That's throwing people out of tall buildings. Alan, I think I did come to you at the beginning of any final thoughts. Now everybody else has sort of gone round.
Well, I've just been looking at it, and quite honestly, I think if you took the middle third, you've got something there to work with. I would cut from scene 20 onwards, because I don't think actually that adds anything to the Gaiety of Nations, which I appreciate would take out your favourite part.
It's not my favourite part, I just read it.
Well, you seem to be fairly wedded to it. You know, but effectively, yesterday's session had got a lot of action, a lot of movement. The bits I heard of the first third of it that we did.
It's not even the first third. I mean, it's a sort of prologue almost.
Yeah, that I think needs pruning with a chainsaw. And then most of what we did yesterday, and then as I say, up to the end of scene 19, the death of Arga, would seem to me to make a satisfying piece. That's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and cut all of the remainder.
I mean, I'm absolutely not wedded to Bullithrumble at all. I mean, beyond the fact he has a funny name and moderately witty dialogue, I mean, it's not that good. I don't even look at it going, well, you could excise that and put that in a different context. It's not a set piece comedy scene in the same way as some of Hodges' stuff in Thomas More was. We will do that one day. Its time will come. Yeah, I think, yeah, dramaturgically, that's broadly speaking the idea is that, you know, yes, we would need to construct out of the ashes of the last 8 scenes or so a sort of Selimus is triumphant, but we don't need to linger on it too much coda. But yeah, I'm really interested in the idea of the tragedy of Bajazet. I think that could be a really interesting project. Any final thoughts? Anyone that really want anyone who feels that they haven't they've been too harsh or not harsh enough? Anyone want to suddenly reappraise the final thought? before I close. Elizabeth, you're muted.
There's a real shape to the play. I think that this, more than I've only done a few plays with the group, but I do feel there's a real shape to this play, which is deliberate. And I do think that I feel it does lend itself to being performed as is, without too many alterations. Yeah, I think it's designed that there are long speeches at the beginning so that when we have all the killing, there's a complete different change of pace. And I like the way the pace changes throughout. That in itself keeps me engaged with the narrative.
Excellent. I'm going to stop you there and say that's the best place to end the session, because I always like to end on a positive note. Thank you so much for delivering it. Well, it's been a mixed bag, and it's been a really interesting process this week, looking at this play and also coming in from the tonally completely different arraignment of Paris, which is firmly by Peel. And I think I've seen some people suggesting that Peel had a hand in this. I don't see that myself at all. But who knows? All that remains is me to thank all the readers for assisting with us today and this week. And goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.